To do the foldable for our word problems lesson, there's actually two different pages you need. The first one is this page that's the second half of the page left over after the quadratic formula lesson. It was the top piece of the page. And the other sheet is the one that has these circles on it. Once you get all your pieces cut out, we're just going to start with the rectangular piece. And what I'd like you to do is to take it, flip it upside down, and we're going to fold it in half. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cut along each of the dotted lines to make 6 little strips here, but we're only going to cut through the one side. So now you should have 6 little flaps that open and close. So what we're going to do on this one is we're going to talk about how you would do your setup or your let statements for questions that have different phrases in them. So the first one says one number is 10 more than the other. And for all of these, I'm always going to recommend that when you do a let statement to start a word problem, you always let X be one of the two things in the question. So here it's talking about two numbers. So I'm going to let X be one of the numbers. And then if it's 10 more, we'll have to talk about what that means. So if I flip this open, on the one little side, I'm going to say let X be the first number. And then since it said that one number is 10 more than another, more means addition. It's one of our adding words. So the next number should be 10 bigger. So 10 bigger would be X plus 10. So we're going to let X plus 10, that's 10 more, be the second number. So if you ever see the word more or bigger, you always want to add. If it was 10 less, we would have done X minus 10 and we would have subtracted. Okay, the second one's a little trickier. It says the sum of two numbers is 10, and sum is also an adding word, and it means that if I take both the numbers and I add them together, they should equal 10. So since I know that I have two numbers, I'm going to do let statements for the two numbers, and I know the first number is going to be X. Always going to let the first one be X. So I'm going to let X be the first number. And then to find the second number is going to be a little bit trickier on this one. And I'm going to need to do a little bit of calculation, and I'm going to try to write it on my little slip of paper. It's going to be a little bit tricky. But I know if I add the two numbers together, they're going to equal 10. That's what the sum means. So I know if I take the first number and I add the second number, it's going to equal 10. So if I wanted to find the second number, I would take the first number to the other side and subtract. So my second number is going to be 10 take away the first number. So if the first number is X, then the second number is going to be 10 take away X. So I'm going to let 10 take away X be the second number. The next one says the difference between two numbers is 10, and difference is a subtraction word. So that means when I subtract the two numbers, I get 10. So same thing, I'm going to let X be the first number. And then for the second number, it tells me that the difference between the two numbers is 10. So I actually have two choices of what I can do here. What this is really telling me is that one number is 10 more than the other, or one number is 10 less than the other. So I can either let x plus 10 be the second number. Or I could let x minus 10 be the second number. And that would be a difference of 10, right? So x and x plus 10, there's a difference of 10 between those. Or x and x minus 10, there's also a difference of 10 between those. Now, consecutive numbers, those ones, you kind of have to know what the word consecutive means. So a consecutive number is numbers that are in a row, like 1, 2, 3, or 85, 86, 87. So consecutive means in a row or in order. So these are numbers that are all in order. And if I take a look at 1, 2, and 3, they're all 1 apart. So if I take 1 and I add 1, I get 2, and then if I add another 1, I get 3. Same thing here, if I add 1 to 85, I get 86. If I add 1 to 86, I get 87. So consecutive digits or consecutive numbers are all 1 digit apart. So here, for my 2 consecutive even numbers, I'm going to let x be the first number. Oops. And then I'm going to let x plus 1 be the second number. You could also do x minus 1, that would be 1 digit apart, but consecutive numbers should all be 1 digit apart. All right, our 2 consecutive even and odd numbers. So consecutive, we already said, is in a row, in order. Now an even number or an odd number, they have skip counting. So an even number would be 2, 4, 6, and odd numbers would be something like 3, 5, and 7. So these don't go up by just 1 anymore. To get from 2 to 4, I'd have to add 2, and then from 4 to 6, I have to add 2 because we're skip counting here, we're jumping by 2's. And the same thing with an odd number, we're adding 2 each time. So whether it's even or odd, we're still just adding 2 to get to the next number. So for our consecutive even and odd ones, we're going to let x be the first number. And we're going to let x plus 2 be the second number. You could also do x minus 2 as long as they're 2 digits apart. All right, and the last one is a little trickier, involves a little bit more work. It says the perimeter of a rectangle is 10 centimeters. So perimeter is the distance around the outside. And when we're talking about the perimeter of something, the perimeter of a rectangle is length plus width plus length plus width, or 2 lengths plus 2 widths. So when I'm doing my let statements here, I'm going to do 1 for the length and 1 for the width. And we're going to choose one of them. It doesn't matter, your choice. We're going to let that be x. So I think I'm going to let x be the length today. And just like we did in this one, we're going to do a little bit of calculation. That's why I've left myself a little bit of space here. I know that perimeter is the distance around the outside, and it is 2 lengths plus 2 widths. And if I want to find an expression for the width, what I need to do is rearrange to get the width by itself. So I'm going to take the length to the other side. So I'm going to say that it's my perimeter, which we said in the front was 10. And I'm going to subtract 2L. And then in order just to get W by itself, I'm going to take the 2 in front of it, and we're going to divide everything here by 2. So 10 divided by 2 is 5, 2 divided by 2 is just 1 length, and then I have just the 1 width. So my width is going to be 5, take away my length, and since my length is x, it's going to be 5, take away x. So I'm going to let 5 take away x be the width. And there we go. So you should put this, fold it back up, and tape that into your notebook where the space is on the page. There's space for this and the other piece. Now the other piece is a little bit trickier. This one is the two circles. So I have one that has writing on half of it, and I have the other one that is just a big empty circle with some dotted lines. So what we're going to do is take our scissors and we're going to cut these little wedges out of this. Now this we're just going to hold on to for now, and this is the one that we're interested in. And what I'm going to do is Miss Pick will give you a paper fastener when you come back to class, but for now I'm just going to overlay what I've cut over top of this so that I can see one of them. And what we're going to do is we're going to go by phrase to see what that actually means. So the product of two numbers is 100. Product is a word for multiplication. So it's telling me that if I multiply the first number times the second number, it should equal 100. So here I'm just going to write that the first number times the second number equals 100. That's what product means. Product means multiply. I think I'm going to write that here. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the bottom part, and we're going to look at the next phrase. So the sum of the squares of two numbers is 100. So sum of the squares. Sum is a word that means addition, and a square is when you square something. So what that means is if you have two numbers, you're going to take the first number and you're going to square it, so multiply it by itself. And then you're going to take the second number and square it. And if you add those two together, that's the sum part, that's going to equal 100, right? So you take your first number, you square it, the second number squared, you add them together, they equal 100. Okay, let's try the next one. The area of the rectangle is 100 centimeters squared. So area of a rectangle, you can use your formula sheet, or maybe you just remember area equals length times width. So the length times the width equals 100. Okay. All right, do the next one. The area of a triangle is 100 centimeters squared. Well, a triangle, the formula for that is base times height divided by 2. So we're going to do the base times the height divided by 2 equals 100. Okay, that's how we do area. All right. Ooh. The hypotenuse of a right triangle is 100 centimeters. So whenever you see the word hypotenuse, that's a clue that we're talking about Pythagorean theorem. So Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm actually maybe going to write a couple of things in this one here. So I'm going to say a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So side 1 squared plus side 2 squared is going to equal 100 squared, since the hypotenuse is the 100. And this is Pythagorean theorem. Yep. It looks a lot like the sum of the squares, except we've got something being squared at the end. And I think we have one left, and this is for revenue. Revenue is the amount of money that you take in when you're selling something. So if you're charging $10 for t-shirts and you sell 15 t-shirts, you do $10 times 15. So you take how much you're selling it for times the number that you sold. So revenue, I'm going to write it out twice here. Revenue equals the number sold times the price. So I'm going to do number sold, let's do 100, equals the number sold times the price. That one's a little hard to fit.